Hello viewers, you are watching Afghanistan Report and I'm your host Swati Kundra. The main stories are: Tajikistan and Russia discuss security situation on Afghan border. Afghan soldiers hold mock drills of insurgents attack. And an outlet serving traditional Afghani bread gains popularity in Delhi. The worsening security situation in Afghanistan has raised security concerns for its neighboring countries. Recently, Tajikistan's President Emomali Rakhmon met with Russia's President Vladimir Putin and raised the security situation on border with Afghanistan.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met with Tajikistan's President Emomali Rakhmon in the Russian city of Sochi on the Black Sea. Speaking to his Tajik counterpart in front of television cameras, Putin said he was concerned about the situation in the region.
Есть необходимость поговорить и по двусторонним отношениям, и по ситуации в регионе, которая, безусловно, нас беспокоит.
Tajikistan is a member of the Moscow-led military bloc, the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Talking in Sochi, Rakhmon said his country is worried by the situation across the border with Afghanistan.
Обстановка, ситуация ухудшается каждым днем в Афганистане. Практически идут боевые действия на протяженности более 60% границы напротив таджикской страны, сопредельной страны. Нас это очень настораживает, поэтому хотел бы сегодня при нашей встрече обсудить первый вопрос, именно вопросы обеспечения безопасности региона.
The situation in Afghanistan has worsened since the government and the Taliban confirmed in July that Taliban leader Mullah Omar had died 2 years ago, dashing hopes that the insurgents would quickly return to the negotiating table. Fighting in Afghanistan killed 5,000 civilians in the first half of this year, more than at any point since war started in 2001.
The commander of the US forces in Afghanistan took responsibility for a deadly attack on a hospital in Kunduz on October 8, promising a congressional panel that there would be a thorough investigation, calling the bombing on hospital as war crime. Aid group MSF say they will review the work in Afghanistan while demanding the Afghan government to accept the independent investigation. We have a report.
The commander of US forces in Afghanistan again took responsibility for a deadly attack on a hospital in Afghanistan. At least 22 patients and staff were killed on October 3 when a US aircraft attacked the hospital run by the international aid group Medecins Sans Frontières during fighting between Afghan government troops and Taliban forces. However, the death toll is likely to rise, with 9 patients and 24 staff unaccounted for and at least 24 bodies reported to be left in the abandoned hospital. MSF has demanded an independent international investigation to establish the facts of the incident, which prompted US President Barack Obama to apologize to the group. Testifying before Congress on October 8, the commander of the international forces in Afghanistan, General John Campbell, repeated statements he made earlier in the week, accepting responsibility for the attack.
On Saturday morning, our forces provided close air support to Afghan forces at their request. But to be clear, the decision to provide aerial fires was a U.S. decision made within the U.S. chain of command. A hospital was mistakenly struck, and we would never intentionally target a protected medical facility. I must allow the investigation to take its course, and therefore I'm not at liberty to discuss further specifics at this time. However, I assure you that the investigation will be thorough, objective, and transparent, and I will get those results back to this committee.
In a press conference in Kabul, MSF said they will review its operations in Afghanistan after the incident. Also known as Doctors Without Borders, the MSF said that an independent humanitarian commission created under the Geneva Conventions in 1991 should be activated for the first time to handle the inquiry. 3 investigations have already begun into the airstrike by US forces.
So our future ability to work in Afghanistan will now be based on our ability to attain a clear reaffirmation of the respect for humanitarian law. And it's for this reason that we've launched the IHFC, and it is for this reason that we are calling on the US to consent to the inquiry.
In Brussels, the aid group said it was working under the assumption that the deadly bombing of its hospital in Kunduz was a war crime. MSF Operational Directorate President MEINIE NICOLAI said the attack could qualify as a war crime since belligerents were all aware of the hospital location.
Location of this hospital was well known, was well communicated to all parties, like we do in a conflict. The opposition forces, including in the coalition forces and the Afghan forces. We've given the coordinates. This hospital exists for 4 years. It's a relatively big hospital that is clearly visible and known to everybody. So a precise attack on this big hospital if not proven differently, leads us to a war crime.
Any confirmation of US responsibility for the hospital deaths would deal a blow to Afghan President Ashraf Ghani's policy of forging closer ties with the United States. His predecessor Hamid Karzai fell out with his backers in Washington, in part over the number of civilians killed by US strikes.
Moving on, the Afghan security forces have to face a daily fight with the insurgents to tackle the security situation better. Afghan soldiers recently participated in military exercise in Kabul.
Around 100 Afghan soldiers from the National Army took part in military drills in Kabul to showcase its capabilities. One of the exercises involved a mock insurgent attack on a building. Dozens of soldiers were seen advancing towards the site of attack and rappelling down from helicopters. The exercises came as battles rage around Kunduz as government forces, backed by US airstrikes, tried to drive out Taliban fighters. Its brief capture was one of the Islamist militants' biggest victories in the 14-year insurgency. The failure of US-trained Afghan troops and police to swiftly recapture Kunduz is an ominous sign for the government of President Ashraf Ghani and the administration in Washington. It underscored concerns about national forces' ability to protect the country when most of the remaining foreign troops leave. However, many of the soldiers at the recent exercises were determined to fight the insurgency.
با مردم افغانستان میگیم که هیچگاه شما را ما تنها نمیگذاریم. ما فرزندای راستین وطن هستیم که از شما دفاع میکنیم با قطره قطره خونمان. هر نوع با هر شکل با هر شیوهی که تروریستا بیان به افغانستان بخوان که بالای شما مردم ظلم و ستم کنن هیچگاه نمیتونن.
هیچ ترس و حراسی نداریم. ما را به می روزا تربیت میکنیم که ما باید بریم در کنار برادرای خود دوشادوش باید باشیم تا امی وطن ما از امی بحران نجات پیدا کنه.
Already, NATO forces are a small fraction of their peak. Now that their formal combat mission has ended and US President Barack Obama is reassessing the timetable for a final drawdown which currently envisages removing all but a few US soldiers by the end of 2016.
After a spate of violence, US Defense Secretary Ash Carter said a number of NATO allies indicated willingness to change their Afghanistan drawdown plans. A report.
NATO allies met in Brussels to chalk out a strategy of troops' presence in Afghanistan. US Defense Secretary Ash Carter said they have asked NATO allies to be more flexible as Afghanistan needs larger military presence for security.
A number of countries today indicated a willingness to change their own plans and posture. Almost all of them, in fact, I think all of them who spoke to the issue, indicated a willingness to continue with the mission in Afghanistan, which is very much the United States position, and capitalize upon the great work that we have done for these many years in the past.
US President Barack Obama has long said that he wanted to end the war and cut the US force level in Afghanistan to about 1,000 by the end of his presidency. But he has given commanders the flexibility to slow the drawdown in the coming months as needed to meet security threats. The top US military commander in Afghanistan, General John Campbell, recently made an argument that drawing the force down to 1,000 by the end of next year will limit coalition training and counterterrorism operations. Campbell said 1,300 of the 9,800 American servicemen and women in Afghanistan are involved in everyday training, assisting and advising of Afghan national security forces, but only about 500 are operating outside of Kabul.
Now we visit to India's capital, New Delhi, where an outlet serving Afghani breads is gaining popularity among the Afghan visitors and locals. Take a look.
Walking through the packed lanes of Lajpat Nagar in Delhi, the smell of freshly baked bread fills the air. The most popular is Mazhar Uzbek Naan Bhai, an outlet serving Afghan naan. Run by Indian Ravi Prasad Dubey and his Afghan partner Ghausuddin, the outlet sells about 400 breads in a day. The naans sell for 20 and 40 rupees depending on their size. Dubey, who hails from Banaras, a city in India's northern Uttar Pradesh state, and his Afghan partner were working together in New Delhi and later decided to open their own business.
क्योंकि हम एक जगह नौकरी कर रहे थे तो साथ में सोचे कि कुछ अपना काम करें. नौकरी करने से कितना मिलेगा, अपना काम शांति का रहेगा, इस वजह से हम अपना खोले और साथ में हम इसको किराए पे लेके अफगानी, क्योंकि यहाँ पे इस इलाके में अफगानी भाई रहते हैं, तो ये रोटी के लिए हम.
The Lajpat Nagar area of Delhi has become a second home to many Afghanis. They come to the Indian capital as tourists, medical patients, and to seek shelter away from their war-ravaged country. The Afghan visitors prefer to trace eateries serving Afghani food.
So we feel that we are in our own country. It's our happiness that we have our own route in India.
The outlet has many employees who hail from Afghanistan. Amanullah, who has been working as a baker for the last 2 months, hails from Mazar-e-Sharif.
साहब के अफगानी आएंगे इधर अफगानी रोटी खरीद करना, दूसरा रोटी खरीद नहीं करना, दूसरा रोटी नहीं करेगा.
India and Afghanistan have a long history of sharing their culture and business, which remains intact to this day.
With that, we come to the end of this week's episode of Afghanistan Report. I'm Swati Kundra, taking your leave. We will be back next week with more news and views from Afghanistan. Goodbye and Khuda Hafiz.